Welcome to part 2 of the How to Build the E-help by Meij-tech. We are looking at the motor mount, the skid leg mount and the folding device. So the folding device is mounted with 4 metal screws into the carbon tube, and we also have this Velcro strap here to secure the folding mechanism and to keep the power lines in the right location. The carbon tube is the same as in the front, the 40mm outside and 37mm inside. And you see I keep the cabling flat and apart in the tube to keep it as cold as possible, because it can get warm and you want the power to be in the motor, not to heat up the air. And in the tail here we have a Velcro strap too, to make it possible to easily take apart the connectors that are in here. And in this case I have this quick pin that make it possible to easily take away the motor and the prop, but just disconnecting those 3 connectors there. But you can have a 6mm bolt to keep this motor mount in the right location. Normally I drill this with a small drill first, and then with a 6mm drill to all of the aluminium and the carbon tube. If you want a quick link, you have to add up to 6.3mm normally. And the connectors are the same as I showed in part 1. And if you connect them wrong, the motor will maybe rotate in the wrong direction, so please check that before you try to do the takeoff. The motor is mounted with 6 screws, but I think 3 or 4 will be strong enough, no problem with that. The hardest power for the motor mount is if you go full power and release the throttle to full brake. So before you brake, go down to low throttle and then release it for brake. The supporting legs is mounted in this 3D printed piece with rubber cords that throw the legs in the right position. And here you also have the rope that goes up to your hook-in point to lift the tail part of the E-help, so you don't have to take the load on your shoulders and so on. And the rubber straps here are easy to use, and you see I have cut the legs a little bit in the angle to fit best possible, and I have grinded away a slot in the leg for the rubber cord. And in the other end I have the rope, the 3mm rope that I have connected to the rubber rope, and I have added a plastic hook there that you can find as a part for different things. I have found an easier hook to find there. Instead I show you soon. But here you see the slot better, that make the leg to rotate to the right location when you fold it out, so the hook is pointing backwards. But these make it easy to just pull it apart a little bit, and you can fold it for easy transportation. You see the slot, and you angle that with where the rubber cord is going over to the other side inside this 3D printed piece. It's nice to have a good hook here because it makes it possible to go backwards if you need when you have the motor harness on. But I always recommend to move forward and make a circle if you want to turn around or something like that. Think about that. The hook's like a tail fin. You want to have a forward motion all the time. And as I told you before, you see the small 3mm rope there that are the extension of the rubber cord. So the rubber cord should be rather tensed when you take it apart to fold the leg. So the leg is really forced to be in the 3D printed mount there on the tailbone. The other skids I found is from the electric installation company. They use these kind of tubes, you know, for taking the cabling inside the walls. And they have these ready-made 90 degrees tube turns or bends. So instead of having the hook, these fit perfect outside the 16mm carbon tube that I use as support legs. And even if it's not so much bend as the original hook, it works really great. It's also easy to take away if you grind it down on hard surface or something like that. You can mount it like the hook with a small screw, or you can just put it there and use a piece of tape that holds it in place. And the rope, instead you just put in a piece of wood in the end of the leg that forced the rope to be in the location. And the rope that goes up to the hook we will talk more about later. And you see I use 2 metal screws here to keep the mount at the top tube. But I recommend you to have the forward one from the top and the back one from the bottom instead. It looks a little bit nicer. And then later on we will talk more about the propeller mount. But you see how easy that it's screwed with 3 of the 6 screws that keeps the motor together. And I also have made a drill jig for the prop if you use the same motor as I am using. The important thing is to put it with the right side forward, and in this case it means that the flat side of the prop should be pointing backwards. So the prop is pulling forward with full power. If you mount it opposite, it works, but you just get 50% power more or less. And here you can see how I have worked with a propeller mount. 3 holes for the screws and 3 holes that are just 5mm deep for the screw heads that I'm not using. And the prop is sitting on the central pin from the motor, so it's very safe and good. But it is important to see that the prop is tracking right, so the tips are in the same circular pattern, so to say. So you don't get vibrations or something when you run the motor and you have the same angle on both blades, if everything is straight and right. So be careful with that. And you see the leg mount is 28 centimeters, more or less, 29 from the motor mount. And the motor mount now is a little bit longer than my prototype to spread the load a little bit better in the carbon tube. So try to set the bolt that keeps it together a little bit more forward than I have done, like in 1/3 of the length of the motor mount. And you see the quick pin, the push-pull there is the same that we use at the A-frame of the triangle bar. A quick and easy way to take away the motor if you need to pack it in the back of the car or something like that, and let the prop sit on the motor mount. And then you see how this 6mm line, and I recommend you to have a little bit stiff line for this, so it makes it harder for anything to hook in, the line to hook around something that it should not hook around on your E-help or something like that. So a little bit of a stiff pre-stretched rope from the boat shop is really great for this application. And you know, when you have this up and you're in the harness later on, it's important that the tail boom is horizontal when you are in the lay down position. So you really check that everything is in the right direction and you get maximum power when you're leaning down in your harness.